Welcome to Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network. On this edition of the program, Lagos State announced cash prizes for sports festival. And coming from tennis, the Australian Open is getting very exciting with results that are tumbling. Senegal wins the 35th edition of the African Cup of Nations. Details of this and many more will be yours when we return from the break. Welcome back, and I have Mike with me.
Thanks for having me this morning. This is a beautiful Monday morning. I'm glad to be here this morning.
Let's get started. And the Lagos State Sports Commission is set to announce cash prizes for medalists at the 2024 National Sports Festival. Of course, you remember the festival that was held in Abeokuta only a few months ago. We saw athletes protest over cash awards for medals of the last two editions. So it looks cheering for athletes and coaches of Lagos State.
Yeah, it looks cheering indeed. After some months, them taking part in the National Sport Festival, when promises were made to some of these athletes. Ever since then, such promises wasn't fulfilled. He had to, of course, take the athlete some extra duty of mounting the government house to protect, for what is due them before, after, a few months before they were given that reward. And I think for me, better late than never, although because of the protest, some senior athletes out there in Lagos State were actually somehow dropped because some extra measure was adopted that if you indeed you're an athlete that hails from Lagos State, before you access the stadium facilities, then you must be registered, your name must be enrolled in the database to ensure that you are professional athlete. So with all of that, that has hampered some senior athlete, but then, like I said, I think it is better late than never.
Better late than never, and as high as 300,000 is been earmarked for individual and, of course, a double gold medalist, while teams that won gold will receive 700,000 naira for individual and double silver medalists. 200,000 comes the way of bronze medalists.
Yeah, I think you see it is segmented into various, angle. If you finish first in your own single heat and double heat, that is just how it rolls. And I think for me, the least amount is about 150,000 naira for individuals. For me, I think some might say it's too little, but then at least it is still something to, of course, spike this athlete and give them hope that indeed there is future for them in the world of athletics.
I'm talking about a monetary reward. Lagos State, of course, finished sixth at the Gateway Games, and so 38 gold medalists will benefit from this award, while 43 silver medalists are beneficiaries of this junk sum, 88,000 bronze. 88 of them were bronze medalists. Well, we say congratulations, and of course, do hope that this money will be credited to the bank account no long time from now. Meanwhile, we'll go straight to the latest coming in from sprints, and of course, a Nigerian sprinter, Faith Osamui, made a very impressive start at the college games in the United States of America, winning the women's 600 meters hurdle event in Indiana, in the U.S.
A great display from Faith out there. She's been doing quite well since last season, which seems to be her breakout season. She's currently the reigning champion when you talk about the the country here. I think she's been able to, put herself on the global map. But you take a look at the timing of her finish, it is also something worthy of commendation. Now, taking that her form to DC far away in the collegiate event, I think for me, one of the bright future in Nigerian athletics. She's not just coming top in her heat, but then improving on her time, because there is one thing about you winning and it's another thing about you improving on your timing, because it is the timing that is going to tell your global status that if something like Olympic comes calling, Commonwealth game, African game, then if you can finish within the time that is widely acceptable, then you can say that you are there. And I think for me, I need to give her kudos, because she has kept this momentum going since last year down till now. A great one for her.
Other Nigerians are doing well, preparing as well with the meets in the United States of America.
Definitely, different Nigerians from different universities out there doing Nigeria's prize. In fact, bulk of the best performance for these years out there in the United States of America, talking about Nigerian athletes representing us, I think they've done well at the start of this season. I mean, it just goes a whole long way to show that possibly we are going to have a very great year ahead, because almost all of them did pretty well for their respective universities out there.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's Eniola Bolaji has successfully defended her title at the 2026 Egypt Para Badminton International, continuing with her dominant form at the international stage. Bolaji, no doubt African #1 and Paralympic bronze medalist, defeated world #7 Halima Haidis of Turkey 2-0 in the final out there in the new capital indoor hall at Cairo on Sunday.
Impressive display from Eniola Bolaji. Her quality is never in doubt. She's been doing us very good since last year, where she went out there, did pretty well. You could also recall that she's also a current African champion. Not just champion, but the way and manner she's actually progressing, even against some big names. Talk about world #7 and the Indians that are doing pretty well out there. She was able to come across about 3 Indians. Yes, she was able to scale through and continue her dominance out there. I think she is a very good asset to the country. I listened to President of the Badminton Federation of Nigeria talking about Francis Obi also pouring a comment on Bolaji, because of her achievement at those. But I think for me, there is more to come from the kitty of Eniola Bolaji.
Let's go to basketball now, and it is electionary period for the Basketball Federation of Nigeria. Do we have any new entrant into the race?
No new entrant. Is still about how to galvanize the Basketball Federation to ensure that at least some of the controversies and misunderstanding that is actually brewing around the Basketball Federation of Nigeria comes to an end. Different stakeholders have been working around the clock to ensure that they restore peace and calmness within the leadership of the Nigerian Basketball Federation. So also it is the former captain of the team, one that have played at the highest level. Talk about the Olympic game, the Commonwealth game, the FIBA, name it, and he has garnered a whole lot of experience. Now down into the administrative cadre, he's also joining his forces to ensure that a lasting peace is restored within the Basketball Federation of Nigeria. And I think for me, the controversy has lingered for a very long time, and some certain individuals within the system are not even willing to back down because of their own selfish interests, trying to cause a constitutional infraction just because they want to elongate their stay in office. And this has raised a whole lot of concern and causing controversies within the Basketball Federation of Nigeria. And I think it is high time all of this is put to rest. 2 weeks ago, they held a stakeholders meeting out there in Abuja, where all these key players were brought to a roundtable discussion, and the constitution was read again to everyone to understand the basis and to know where their right begins and where it stops. But it looks as though peace has not totally returned. So also some other stakeholders are also making frantic effort to ensure that they restore total peace within the system.
Well, let's hope that the elections coming up will not be acrimonious at all, like we used to know in the Basketball Federation. Meanwhile, across in the United States of America, Chicago Bulls beat Brooklyn Nets 124 to 102 points.
A great one for Chicago Bulls as they were able to bull their opponents. It wasn't an easy fight, but then they just managed to scale through. It's not been a totally great start for them so far this season, but then I think they can just get better with time. I just believe that there are still more games to play, and if they can continue with this kind of form, maybe they are going to finish very strong.
Houston Rockets returned to winning ways, 119 points to 110 points over New Orleans Pelicans.
A great one for Houston Rockets. Great players within their squad. I think injury has been one of their problems so far this season when key of their players get injured. Some of the fringe players sometimes having not played much for a very long time, and because of the injury to one or two players, you are thrown into the heart of the action. Sometimes anxiety, sometimes pressure doesn't allow some of these French players to perform as expected for the big boys out there. But then I hope this victory early hours of this morning could just be the extra push for them.
Charlotte Hornets beat Denver Nuggets by 110 points to 87 points, while Portland Trail Blazers were 117 points over 110 points winners over Sacramento Kings. LA Lakers 105 to 89 points from the Raptors from Canada at Toronto. What's happening here? Lakers are back?
Not totally back for LA Lakers, but then I think they are just trying to pick up the pieces out there, try to get themselves, back into winning ways. It's not been a total impressive one for them in the first half of the NBA, because about 40-something games has been played already. And I just think it will get better for them if they can complement their effort with what we've seen in the early hours of this morning.
Okay, now let's get to the Australian Open, the first tennis Grand Slam of the year. We've seen some first matches played in the last 24 hours. Venus Williams is in the news. She was a wildcard entrant into the race at the age of 40, and now she nearly continued with a record-setting form before falling to Olga Damilovic in the very first round of the event. Where is she going? She's a former champion, many times champion, but now she's entered into the books as the oldest woman to compete at the Australian Open. Mike, she didn't win, but she entered into the history books.
Definitely, she didn't win, but then she has made a history for herself, becoming the oldest woman to participate in the Australian Open. Then again, becoming the first woman, oldest woman as well, to win her first set in the Australian Open. I think it's a record for her.
Not enough. First set, not enough to make her win the tournament in the first round.
Definitely. You could also listen to, remember what we talked about yesterday over the weekend when China joined us. I was talking about the fact that he doesn't really understand what else that she's looking for, because she has paid her dues, and it is time for her to go enjoy herself. But then she still wants to continue playing, and China expressed dissatisfaction and pessimism about her performance in this year's Australia. I mean, it is beginning to play out, as she could not hold her own because her age is telling on her really. But then I think he may say she's been knocked out, but then the record that she has created for herself will remain for a very long time.
Numbers matter for Venus Williams, and I think now she might just look forward to yet another number to enter into the history books of her career in tennis. Meanwhile, top seeds at the women's side continue to progress at the Australian Open, and we don't see any big name haven't failed in the female category. The same for the male. Carlos Alcaraz, of course, in an easy win over lowly rated Adam Walton 6-3, 7-6. That one did end for him to advance in the second round. For world number one, Arina Sabalenka in the female category, She won 6-4, 6-1 over Tiatusa Sira Kumanga. And so upsets are not yet at the Australia Open, you want to say?
Yeah, but I think it's been an easy ride for some of the seeded players or the big names out there. It's been an easy ride for them in the first game for them out, making light work of their opponent. I think the maybe you call it an upset that we saw world number 20 in the ATP, talking about Flavio Coboli, right, losing. I think that is a little upset to say. But then the reason is quite simple. It could be excused because he played with illness. That couldn't allow him to be at his peak, and that is why he lost that way. But then, whichever playing with illness or not, is that he has been knocked out at world number 20. I think that is a little upset. Away from that, there is no major upset so far.
Felix Alasimen has been knocked out as well by relatively unknown Nugurugues.
Yes, Felix Ogo Alasime is another player that you don't just really put your trust on because he has not been very consistent. Whenever you expect him to, live up to the expectation, he doesn't just hit that peak. So for me, I really cannot truly say that it is an upset for me.
Well, we look forward to more actions at the Australia Open today. There are matches going on as we speak. We just hope that the big names continue to push forward even in the second round of the feature. Well, let's take a break now. When we return from the break, we'll bring you football and a lot to talk about in football. The Premier League here in Nigeria has entered into match day 21. We'll bring you results from matches played last night. Then the Senegalese national football team are now, the Teranga Lions are now the champions of the African Cup of Nations for 2025. They did it the hard way, and we'll look at it as well on the show when we return from the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's Sports Talk, and we'll get to the second round of the fixtures right here, and it is football time. Mike, the Premier League in Nigeria has entered into, in fact, matches for week 21 has been concluded, with the biggest result coming all the way from Kano. Abia Warriors beating home side Pillars by 1-0. Imama with 3 valuable points, if you ask.
I think the magic of Imama Makabo is beginning to work out going away from home, especially at a very rough ground and not a very friendly terrain. Talking about Kano at the their stadium out there, talking about the Sani Abacha Stadium, to get all 3 points. It doesn't come easy. Not too many clubs can go out there now and come back with all 3 points. But then, Abia Warriors, they were determined because they are having in mind to get closer to the league leaders, talking about Rivers United, who has 41 points. So Abia Warriors has 37 points as we speak. So I guess it is the reason for their extra work to ensure that they keep up the pace with the leaders, talking about Rivers United. But then in all, I think it was a great game for Abia Warriors.
Bayelsa United made home count because they beat Shooting Stars by 2-0 in Egua. Insurance of Benin were better at Benin as well because they beat El Karemi Warriors by 3-2. Ikodu City beat Kwara United by 1-0. Nasarawa United were 2-1 winners over Niger Tornadoes. Plateau United beat neighbors Bauchi, Torres of Bauchi by 1-0. Then Enyimba played a goalless draw with Barrow FC. Enyimba, their woes don't seem to be easy enough.
At all, with their winning magic back on track as they still struggle, even against teams that you don't even expect them to struggle. Barrow FC, a newly promoted side, you expect Enyimba, a very strong and formidable side to beat them silly, but then it wasn't the case as they even struggle. In fact, it was a narrow escape for them. It would have been all 3 points drop because Barrow FC had a great opportunity to have taken all 3 points, but their striker failed to convert the chances that came their way. So for the People's Elephant, the struggle continues.
Meanwhile, for Rivers United, they continue to lead on the top of the log with a 1-0 win over Remo Stars. It looks like a difficult one. The goal came in the last 2 minutes of the encounter via Adekeme.
Yeah, a very difficult one it was for Rivers United, but then all that matters is that they were able to take all 3 points against their rival, because Ikodu City, not a bad side at all. They are also trying to see if they can fight for the title, seated third on the league. I think this is what teams that really want to win trophy does. A match that you expected to drop 3 points, you just managed to find a way to take that 3 points. This is what teams like Arsenal has been lacking for some years right now. When the opportunity opens up for them to manage and get all 3 points, you just see them, dropping balls. So I think for Rivers United, it is the right one, because last season, the reason why they had to lose the league to the eventual winner is that when they have this kind of opportunity, expect them to win the game, they just struggle. It's either they lose the game or draw, and that is why Remo Stars were able to take the lead away from them. But this time around, it looks as though Finidi George has been able to learn from his mistakes last season.
Finidi George and Rivers United egging up points when it matters most. Meanwhile, today, there will be a fixture in the Premier League. Kun Khalifat will take on Enugu Rangers in one of the ties. There will be Warri Wolves up against Katsina United as well. What do you make of these fixtures?
Warri Wolves, Katsina United, a game to watch for a couple of reasons. First, it is a game where both teams will be battling to outsmart each other to improve their standing on the league table. Secondly, the second stanza of the season goes a whole long way to determine how far you can finish, because your first stanza, you might say, all things has not gelled, but in the second stanza of the league, where you've gone on break, at least to take some rest, coming back, it is expected you start firing from all cylinders. So a lot to play for, and for Enugu Rangers, it's not been a best of time for them. But then I just think that this time around, they can be able to make good use of this second stanza.
Okay, now let's go to the big one. At the weekend, the 35th edition of the African Cup of Nations was concluded in Rabat, Morocco. First, before that, yesterday, last night match, we saw the Super Eagles of Nigeria claim bronze for a record 9th time in the history of African Cup of Nations, courtesy of a penalty win over the Pharaohs of Egypt.
Yeah, not too impressed, although some might say, it wasn't that bad, because at least they will finish third to take up about 3-point-something billion naira as one of the highest prize money earner. It's not a bad one, but then you take a look at the target set it is not met, or it wasn't met largely, because we finished second last time out when we got to the final against the hosts. We were beaten in the final. This time around, the expectation was for we to at least get to the final, not just getting to the final again this time around, but making it count by winning it. But yet, we failed to get to the final. Winning the third place match, yeah, maybe a good one, because it is not something that we should be jumping up. We have won it a record 8 times. This last one makes it 9, the highest of any African country. We can't just be packing bronze medals. I mean, we need to break the jinx. Don't forget, as big and giant as Nigeria is in the world of football, we have only won just 3 African Cup of Nations. So for me, I think it is high time we improve on that. Let's make it count. But in all, I just want to say that it's been a good job done by Eric Chell.
Good job by the Super Eagles head coach, Eric Chell, who believe will continue to be in charge of the team in the months ahead. Meanwhile, so much money has been made for the team within the period. 3.5 billion naira is expected to be accrued to the Super Eagles of Nigeria aftermath of that bronze medal win.
Great money. I talked about this earlier. Yeah, we are the 3rd highest earner in this year's African Cup of Nations. Right, the host came, took home about $10 million. Second place about $4 million. Nigeria 3 points. So I think it's not a bad one at all. If you talk about the financial, gains that we've made for this year's African Cup of Nations, but plus other incentive that is certainly going to come the way of Super Eagles. I think this money should be properly utilized. That is just all.
Well, we look forward to how the NFF will use this one, but 3.5 billion naira is quite a huge sum aftermath of the African Cup of Nations participation by the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Final was last night, and will you say it was an embarrassment to African football, or it was a show of shame? Because the Senegalese beat Morocco, host nation, by 1-0, but a lot of incidents in the course of the fixture looks embarrassing to African football. At this stage, in the 107th minute or so, the Senegalese national team walked off all the way down to the dressing room. They had to be called back by one of the players, Sadio Mane, because the players were completely off the pitch, and then the referee and the Moroccan side were still on the pitch. Aftermath of a disputed penalty awarded to the home side, Morocco, by the referee from the Democratic Republic of Congo. There was a lot of shuffling by the players, and of course, at the stands, the fans were very restive, and officials from the both sides pushing and roughing themselves. It was completely, in my words, show of shame. But the Senegalese were actually returned back to the pitch, and when they did return, match continued. They entered into the extra time. That stunner, I saw the home side, sent to the second place position, while Senegal won the 2nd African Cup of Nations in 4 years.
I think for me it was a frenetic final, more like a tug of war for both sides, and the refereeing decision yesterday just goes a whole long way to solidify the clamor by some persons before the match that they are not confident that the center ref was going to be neutral in that game. But watching that yesterday's game, it is my personal opinion, though, that the referee, the penalty awarded to the
Senegalese,
against the Senegalese at the dying minute of that game, I think it was, for me, justifiable. All right, it was maybe the last kick of the game, no doubt. But then, as a defender, standing in front of a striker, pulling his jersey down from behind, from the neck, it was clearly obvious. And that is why Diaz was that furious when the referee failed to point to the center box for a penalty. And of course, the VAR doing their job inside the VAR, they had to review that process again and had to call the attention of the center ref. Don't forget, the center ref did just outrightly point to the spot immediately that foul was committed. It took the intervention of the VAR to call him back to come and assess things for him. I think for me, personally, it was a clear
For me, that
penalty.
looks like a clear penalty, no doubt about it. It was a penalty, but I think the Senegalese are protesting earlier, goal that was chopped off by the referee.
I think that is where the issue is. Yeah, was some sort of pushing somewhat before leading. Leading to that goal. I guess this is the reason why he had to yank off that goal that was scored by the Senegalese. But then, in all, I think for me, a lot needs to be improved. No doubt that was a penalty. Yeah, but there are other calls that for me I think was not in tandem with the spirit of sportsmanship, because you cannot bluntly refuse to blow a foul and against an opponent, and the way you officiate the match seems to many as though you are taking side, and it's a very big disgrace to the world of football, especially for African football, because we have some top dignitaries.
But in all of this, was it enough for the Senegalese national team to walk off from the pitch back to the dressing room?
No, it wasn't enough. And I think for me, I know CAF will certainly review this and, sanction them appropriately. Whatever the reason, you don't have to show that kind of because it was an embarrassment to the world of to African football, and the coach as well. The coach led his players. In fact, you saw how he was furious on the touchline, calling his players down to the dressing room, even when one key member of the player, talking about Sadio Mane, one of the oldest side and the leader of the team, he was the one standing. All, including the coach, have gone to the tunnel, to the dressing. He was still standing, calling the player. So for me, I think it was a show of shame from the Senegalese. Yes, you might feel aggrieved because of what you feel wasn't a penalty, but then there is a way for you to channel your grievance. There are rooms for you to ventilate your angers and not to display such arrogance on the world stage where everybody is watching. So I believe CAF, they are certainly going to take it serious against the Senegalese national team.
Will you think that the role of Sadio Mane in that malaise led to his being named as the player of the tournament?
Definitely, no doubt. He was a peacemaker. That is what we call the spirit of sportsmanship. In fact, this act from Sadio Mane has further cemented his legacy and name in the annals of African football history.
Sadio Mane, the man you see on your screen there, tournament player for the year 2025 at the African Cup of Nations. He said he's retiring from the international football, and this will be his last African Cup of Nations. But let's go back to the final itself. Raheem Diaz, what was he thinking? He was thinking of, what's the name of the Nigerian player, Chukwueze or what? That was a very lackadaisical penalty. You wanted a Panenka in a crucial last kick that would have sent the trophy to Rabat.
I think for me, sometimes, being at that big stage, we might not really understand the pressure that comes with it, especially after the protest. He was about to take the penalties, but the opposite team, they walked away. A whole lot of shuffle, struggling, discussion here and there. And I think that automatically made him to lose his concentration. When the players were finally back on the pitch of play, I think a lot was going through his brain. And I think for me, trying to take the Panenka penalty was more like an easy one for him. If that goal had gone in, maybe we'll still praise him. That under pressure, he was still calm and scored such a Panenka penalty. So penalty is a game of chances that even the best player of the world can lose.
Well, if I were to be a coach, my player taking a penalty would go for power and not, style, if you ask me. Panenka actually failed Morocco last night. That was a very, very lackadaisical way of taking a penalty, especially when the goalkeeper did not move at all. It was easy. In fact, everybody was like, what is going on here? When they saw the ball in the hands of Mendy, goalkeeper for Senegal. But that did not stop him from emerging as the highest goal scorer of the tournament.
Yeah, he didn't, but then he would have further cemented his name in the annal of Morocco football and that of African football if he had scored that penalty to leave the African Cup of Nations, then also crown it up by being named the highest goal scorer. Yeah, it is a record he has achieved for himself, but then beyond being the highest scorer, you lose the title because of a missed penalty. I think it's not a good one at all. But in all, I think he was very, very prolific in this year's African Cup of Nations.
Goalkeeper of the tournament went to Yassine Bono from Morocco. He considered only one goal in the course of the tournament.
Yeah, no doubt, truly deserving because he made some strings of saves, even against Senegal in the final. He made a very crucial save as well that would have, sealed off the victory for Senegalese side. So, Yassine Bono, a world-class goalkeeper any day, anytime.
Last have not been heard of the African Cup of Nations just concluded in Rabat, Morocco, because CAF is expected to meet any moment soon. FIFA president was there. The whole world was watching, and I think there has to be repercussions and punishment so as to deter others from taking part of it, especially the Senegalese coach. I don't know the kind of punishments he will get. At the end of the day, his actions were not befitting of a top-class coach at all. We've seen football, we've seen these things happen, and we know how reactions come with it, but it was far extreme with the Senegalese officials last night in Rabat, Morocco. Very embarrassing to African football. Quality of football in course of the tournament was high, if you ask me. But the reaction from the Senegalese officials looks more than what we've seen before with the Algerians, especially in this tournament as well.
Yeah, definitely. Quality of football very high, no doubt. But then about the reaction of certain persons who feel aggrieved, I think it is emotion. Emotion ran over them. You could also recall that Samuel Eto'o, the president of the FECAFOOT, that is the Cameroon Football Federation, has also been fined by CAF as well because of his, boisterous reaction as well in their defeat in the semi-final against the indomitable Lion. Even while he wasn't on the touchline or on the pitch of play, he was sitting on the stand, but some of his reaction wasn't in tandem with what CAF expected, and that is why. So definitely, Papatua, the Senegalese head coach, will seriously be sanctioned. I'm sure of that.
Something I saw last night in the side of that Mohammed V Stadium in Rabat. Papa Diop, remember him? The Senegalese legendary player. One man that will have done maybe more than what we saw on the pitch, but he was calm enough to call on Sadio Mane to ask the boys to return back to the pitch, and that was legendary. And you won't see it when he was playing football, but it looks like he's far more matured now. Just retired, and so we saw Papa Diop, calling on the team to return back to the pitch, at least to have some image saved for the country.
I think he was very instrumental in restoring order in that game because he took his intervention as a senior player to, of course, call one of the senior players as well, a former player, a legend. In fact, during his days, he was seen as a very stubborn, yes, a very stubborn player. But then, just like you said, age comes with a lot of maturity, and that is what he exhibited yesterday.
Well, congratulations to the Senegalese national team, football team, emerging champions of this 2025 African Cup of Nations. Meanwhile, we go quickly to the Premiership in England as we round up. Arsenal didn't take advantage of the slip of Manchester City, because in the Manchester derby, it was a whooping 3-0 in favor of United against City. But Arsenal played out a goalless draw with Nottingham Forest, and that ensured that they had just a 6-point lead. 7-point lead. And everybody thought that Aston Villa could cut that to just 4 points. But Aston Villa himself suffered a home defeat last night, courtesy of a 1-0 win by visiting Everton.
I think I'm beginning to get a little worried about Arsenal. Yeah, we've been praising Arsenal right from the start of the season because of their impressive display. But at this crucial moment, you don't expect Arsenal to be, loose guarding, especially at this critical.
What a weekend it was! All the bottom teams, 5 bottom teams, had results, and it's not only Arsenal that slipped. We saw that, of course, Manchester City, Newcastle, now Aston Villa. So all the top teams slipped as well, while the bottom teams, improve on their fortunes. Chelsea was the only team at the week and that had a good result, beating Brentford by 2-0, courtesy of the first win of their manager, Rossini.
I think for me,
Liverpool dropped points as well against Burnley.
Yeah, and that is why I say that I'm not too comfortable with the way Arsenal is going in this second stanza, because the reason is very simple. 2015-2016, when Leicester City won their first English Premier League title, the reason was very simple. All the top teams weren't doing well. Chelsea, Manchester United of this world, Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester City, nowhere to be found. And it was an easy one for Leicester City to lift it. This year, or this 2025-2026 EPL, most of the big teams are not really that impressive. The defending champion, Liverpool, they are not good. They are not firing from all cylinders. Chelsea are not contending. Manchester United, they are shadow of themselves. Manchester City not firing, trying to rebuild back. Leaving only Aston Villa, which is not a traditional top 4 teams, to be among the title race. And that is to tell you how, the standard has dropped for this big team. Leaving only Arsenal with a very good squad to lift the league. But then they are still dropping points where they should be taking advantage of the fact that...
How many points do they have now?
7 points adrift of, Manchester City. But by now, it should have been 13 points.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed. 1 point is just 1 point needed to win the league, and so 7 points is still some good numbers, if you ask me. Meanwhile, across to Spain, Real Madrid gained points as FC Barcelona dropped points last night against Real Sociedad. 2-1. It ended in favor of home side Real Sociedad, while Madrid beat Levante by 2-0. It looks like the gap there in the La Liga as well dropped to 2 points.
Definitely. I think Hansi Flick and his boys will not be very happy about this particular one, because Madrid, I think they should be thanking their stars for allowing Barca dropping points so that they can close in the gap.
In the German Bundesliga, no stopping Bayern Munich.
Not at all, not at all. They've been, a terror of a team to play against so far this season.
They beat the Leipzig by 5-1.
True, and I think it's a great job being done by Vincent Kompany.
And across to Italy, it looks like Inter Milan will continue to lead there, courtesy of their 1-0 win over Udinese. They maintain the lead at the Italian Serie A.
Sure, for Inter Milan, this might just be their season to leave the title, but then still long way to go, like I said earlier, because we still have some great teams out there. Napoli not backing down as well. So, but for now, Inter Milan seems to be the team out there in the Italian Serie A.
And while talking about Inter Milan, they'll be visiting Arsenal, right, in the Champions League in the next 48 hours or so. Meanwhile, Dutch giants Ajax have announced the appointment of Judy Cruyff, son of legendary Johan Cruyff, as the team's technical director. Cruyff, for 51 years of age, starting his job on the 1st of February.
Good one. Trying to go back to the chip of the old blocks, bringing the son of one of their greats, to administrative cadre. I think it's a good one. Let's see what he brings to the table for the team.
Congratulations to Judy Cruyff there for emerging as the technical director of Ajax, of course, a team that has a lot of history associated with his father, Johan Cruyff. He led Ajax to 3 consecutive European Cup titles in the early 70s, and of course, he's been known as an attacking midfielder of great finesse. That will be it for this edition of Sports Talk. We'll definitely be back at 6 p.m. Nigerian